Tom was a quiet man who liked machines more than crowds. He worked as an engineer on a small space station called Horizon Post, a lonely outpost floating near the far edge of human-explored space. Most days were the same for him. He would wake, up in his small cabin, drink his bitter coffee, and spend hours in the maintenance bay fixing old equipment. He liked it that way. The station was not important enough for frequent visitors. Cargo ships came once every 2 weeks. A patrol vessel would pass by maybe once a month. Life was slow and predictable. Tom could go weeks without speaking more than a few words to anyone except his supervisor, an older man named Harris who spent most of his time reading old novels. That calm routine ended one quiet evening. Tom was in the bay, repairing a worn-out oxygen recycler, when the station's alarm suddenly rang. It was not the emergency alarm, but the docking alert. He frowned and checked the screen. No ships were scheduled to arrive. The incoming vessel's signature did not match any known human design. Harris," Tom called into the comm, "we've got an unscheduled arrival. And I think it's alien." There was silence for a moment. Then Harris's voice came back, slightly shaky. "You better get to the docking ring. And try not to touch anything that looks dangerous." Tom wiped his hands on his work shirt and headed down the long corridor toward the docking area. The air felt tense, as if the station itself was holding its breath. When he reached the ring, the outer doors were already sealed behind a newly arrived ship. The vessel looked like a piece of silver art carved into curves and spirals, glowing faintly with a soft blue light. It was nothing like the boxy freighters or military ships Tom knew. The airlock hissed open, and 3 tall figures stepped out. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their skin shimmered faintly, as though it reflected light from a hidden source. Their eyes were bright and deep, holding colors that shifted when they moved. Each wore flowing robes that seemed to be woven from threads of starlight. Tom stood frozen, feeling awkward in his oil-stained shirt and worn boots. The 3 stopped in front of him. The tallest one, who carried herself like a leader, tilted, her head slightly as if studying a strange animal. She spoke something in a language Tom did not understand, soft, musical words that rolled like water over stones. The second figure narrowed her eyes, scanning him from head to toe. She gave a small nod, but her expression stayed serious. The third was the youngest-looking of the group. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw him. She whispered something to the leader, who glanced at Tom again, more carefully this time. Tom shifted uncomfortably. "Welcome to Horizon Post, I guess," he said, unsure if they could even understand him. The leader finally spoke in a strange but understandable version of human language. "We seek one with the hands that fix the broken and the mind that sees the hidden. We have searched many places. Now, the path brings us here." Tom blinked. You came here for an engineer?" They exchanged glances. The younger one gave the smallest smile, but the others stayed unreadable. The leader stepped forward. "We are from the crystal realms of Viora. Our home faces danger. A great shield that guards our people has fallen into silence. None of our own can bring it back to life. Our paths of wisdom told us to find the one who can." Tom was still trying to process the fact that 3 alien princesses, because by their clothing, manner, and the way they were treated by the ship's crew in the background, they clearly were royalty, had just walked into his life asking for help. "I think you might have the wrong person," he said slowly. "I fix air filters, not alien shields." The second one stepped closer. She was taller than Tom by a head and had a presence that made him want to step back. Her gaze was sharp, but her words were calm. "The signs point here. The old visions spoke of a traveler from a distant sun. He would wear no crown, carry no weapon, yet he would hold the fate of our world in his hands." Tom rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, I'm flattered, But I'm not some hero. I'm just a guy who knows how to take machines apart and put them back together." The younger princess took a step toward him, curiosity clear in her eyes. She spoke in her own language again, this time to her sisters. The leader gave a faint nod, and for the first time since arriving, her expression softened just a little. "You may believe you are not the one," the leader said, "but we have traveled far, and our guidance has never failed. We will see if your hands speak the truth." Tom exhaled slowly. He could feel that this was not going to be a short visit. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Harris peeking around the corner, clearly trying to stay out of sight, but also clearly eavesdropping. Tom almost wished Harris would step in and say something, but the old man stayed hidden. The leader made a graceful motion toward the docking corridor. "We would speak further on our vessel. There, we will tell you of our need. If you are willing, you will be tested. If you are not, then our journey may end in darkness." Tom hesitated. His whole life had been predictable until now, and part of him wanted to refuse and go back to fixing the oxygen recycler. But another part, a small, curious spark, wondered what kind of machine could be so important that alien royalty would cross the stars for it. He met the leader's steady gaze. "All right," he said finally. "I'll hear you out." The younger princess's eyes lit up at his words, and she whispered something to her sisters. Tom could not understand the language, but he thought he heard a tone of relief in her voice. They led him toward their ship, the silver walls glimmering like they held trapped starlight. As the airlock closed behind them, Tom knew one thing for certain. His quiet life was gone, and whatever came next was going to change him forever. The inside of the alien ship felt like stepping into a dream. The walls were smooth and curved, glowing faintly as if lit from within. Soft light followed them down the corridor, adjusting as they moved. Tom had never seen technology like this. There were no visible cables, no flickering screens, no heavy machinery. Everything looked alive, as though the ship itself was breathing. The leader walked ahead with calm grace, her robes flowing like liquid silver. The second princess walked beside her, silent and watchful, while the youngest stayed closer to Tom. She seemed the most curious about him, glancing at his tools still clipped to his belt. They reached a wide chamber where the walls opened into clear panels, revealing the black sea of space beyond. The stars shone brightly here, and a distant blue nebula painted the view with soft colors. In the center of the room stood a round table made of something that looked like crystal, but pulsed faintly with light. The leader gestured for Tom to sit. She took a seat opposite him, the other two princesses standing slightly behind her. "My name in your language would be Liren," she said. "This is my sister, Sael." She motioned to the tall, sharp-eyed princess. "And this is our youngest, Sister Mireia." Tom gave a small nod. "Tom," he said simply. Lirian's eyes stayed on him, her gaze steady but not unkind. "We have come a long way. Our home, Viora, is a world of crystal towers, great oceans, and skies lit with drifting lights. For centuries, we have been protected by the Aegis Network, an ancient defense system built by those who came before us. It watches the skies and shields our people from threats." She paused, as if weighing her words carefully. "The Aegis has failed. Without it, Viora lies open to attack. Already, raiders from the dark sectors circle our borders. We cannot repair it. Our engineers know much, but the Aegis was not made by our hands. We believe it was built by travelers from beyond our stars." Tom leaned back slightly in his chair. "And you think I can fix it?" Mireia stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "Not think. Know. The pathfinders of our people saw a vision long ago. It spoke of a time when the Aegis would fall silent, and the one to awaken it would come from a distant sun. He would not be a soldier or a ruler, but a maker. His tools would be simple, but his understanding would reach beyond walls and wires. Tom gave a small, uneasy laugh. I'm not some chosen hero. I'm just an engineer who keeps a small station running. You might be looking for someone smarter, maybe someone who's studied alien systems before. Sael, the middle sister, spoke for the first time. Her tone was serious, almost like she was giving a challenge. We have searched many worlds. We have tested many hands. They failed. You repaired the device we brought aboard your station in less than an hour. That device has been dead for centuries. Tom blinked. That little cube? I just replaced. A burned-out link and cleaned the contacts. Maria tilted her head. And yet no one else could see what you saw. Lyra Ann leaned forward slightly. We are not asking you to fight. We are asking you to look, to see the heart of a machine that none of us understand, and to breathe life into it again. Tom thought about it. Every part of him wanted to say no, to go back to his safe, predictable life. But there was something in their voices, especially in Maria's, that stirred his curiosity. He had fixed many things in his life, but nothing that might save an entire planet. What exactly is wrong with this? Aegis network, he asked. Liren pressed her palm against the crystal table. The surface shifted, showing a floating image of a vast, glowing grid surrounding a planet. Thin lines of light connected giant crystal towers that seemed to rise from both land and sea. In the center of the image, one tower was dark, and several lines had gone dim. This is the Aegis, Liren explained. Its heart lies deep beneath, our capital. The power flows through crystal conduits, linking every tower. But the heart has fractured. Energy cannot pass. Without the flow, the network is blind and weak. Our attempts to repair it have only made the fractures worse. Tom studied the image. Looks like an energy distribution problem. You've got a feedback loop stuck open somewhere, and the break is causing the whole network to collapse on itself. The sisters exchanged glances. Sael's sharp eyes narrowed slightly, and Maria's lips curved into the smallest smile. You speak as though you already understand, Sael said. I don't. Not yet, Tom replied. But I can guess. Machines talk, in a way. They tell you where they hurt, if you listen right. Liran stood. We will take you to Viora. You will see the heart for yourself. If you can repair it, our world will be safe. If not... She trailed off, but the weight in her voice said enough. Tom hesitated. Leaving the station meant leaving everything familiar behind. He didn't know how long he'd be gone, or if he'd even be able to do what they were asking. But the thought of walking away from the challenge tugged at him. Mireia stepped closer, looking him directly in the eyes. You will not be alone. We will guide you, protect you, and give you everything you need, but only you can do this. Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right, I'll try. The tension in the room eased slightly. Liran gave a short nod. Then we begin at once. The ship's engines hummed to life, a smooth, steady sound unlike any human vessel. Through the clear panels, Tom watched as Horizon Post shrank into the distance. Stars drifted past like scattered diamonds. As the ship turned toward its destination, Tom felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Somewhere ahead was a machine unlike anything he had ever worked on. Somewhere ahead was a challenge that might change everything. And though he didn't notice it, Mireia watched him with quiet curiosity, as if she had already decided something about him that the others had not yet seen. The alien ship moved through the darkness of space with a smooth grace that made Tom feel like it was gliding rather than flying. There was no rumble of engines, no vibration underfoot, only a soft background hum that was almost calming. He had been given a small cabin with walls that glowed faintly like the rest of the ship, and a bed that shaped itself to his body when he lay down. But he did not rest for long. Not long after the journey began, Mireia came to his cabin. She was, smiling slightly, but there was a spark of excitement in her eyes. Liran wishes to see you in the Hall of Memory, she said. Tom followed her through winding corridors. Every turn revealed more of the ship's strange beauty. Arched passages that seemed grown rather than built, panels that shimmered with patterns like rippling water, and doorways that opened silently when they approached. When they entered the Hall of Memory, Tom paused. The space was wide and circular, its floor made of the same crystal material as the table he had seen earlier. Above them, the ceiling was a dome filled with points of light that shifted slowly, like a map of moving stars. In the center stood Liran and Sael. Between them sat a strange object on a low pedestal. It was a cube, about the size of a human head, covered in fine, intricate lines. Many of those lines were broken or dim. This, Liran said, is a fragment of the Aegis. It was once a control unit. Now it is dead. If you can awaken it, you may have the skill to face the true heart of the network. Tom stepped closer, studying the cube. It looked like no machine he had ever seen. The surface felt warm, almost alive, and the broken lines reminded him of damaged circuits, though they were made from something that looked more like crystal than metal. What happened to it? Tom asked. Sael's voice was calm but carried a challenge. It has been silent for more than 500 cycles. Our best minds failed to repair it. Be careful. If you strike it wrongly, the core will shatter and be lost forever. Tom crouched beside the pedestal. He pulled a small toolkit from his belt, human tools, simple and practical. He had no idea if they would even work on alien technology, but he started by doing what he always did, looking closely, tracing patterns, searching for the story the machine wanted to tell. Minutes passed in silence. Liran and Sael watched, without speaking, while Mireia stood off to the side, glancing between Tom and her sisters. Tom found a section where several of the crystal lines ended abruptly. It reminded him of a damaged connector. Carefully, he used a magnifier to study the break. The edges were burned, as if an energy surge had melted them centuries ago. He opened a pouch and took out a fine conductive filament he used for delicate repairs on human systems. With steady hands, he began weaving the filament into the gap, forming a bridge between the broken ends. Sael stepped forward slightly. That will not hold. The energy will destroy it. Tom didn't look up. Not if I reroute part of the current. It'll reduce strain until the system stabilizes. He found a second damaged path, repaired it the same way, and then checked the cube's small power port. It was clogged with a fine layer of crystal dust. He used a soft brush to clean it, then attached a portable energy cell from his own kit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a faint hum filled the room. The broken lines began to glow, first dimly, then brighter. Patterns of light ran across the cube's surface like water finding its course again. Mireia gasped softly. Liran's expression stayed calm, but her eyes followed the flowing lights. Even Sael, who had doubted him, leaned closer. After a few moments, the cube projected a small image into the air, lines and symbols Tom could not read, but which made the princesses exchange quiet words in their own language. Tom disconnected the power cell and stepped back. There, it's not a full repair. It's more like a wake-up call. You'll need to stabilize the rest of the circuits before it runs at full capacity. Liran nodded. You did in minutes what our engineers could not do in centuries. Sael's gaze lingered on him. Perhaps you are the one after all. Mireia's smile widened and she stepped forward. He's perfect, she said softly, though this time in her own language. Tom didn't understand the words, but the warmth in her tone made him raise an eyebrow. What did she say? Liran gave a small smile. She said your skill is rare. Tom felt a faint flush rise in his face. It's just a matter of listening to what the machine needs. The cube slowly dimmed as its small reserve of energy drained away. But the test was over. Liren stepped closer. This was only a fragment. The heart of the Aegis is far larger, far more dangerous to touch. But I believe you may succeed. Tom packed his tools, standing. I'll give it a try when we get there, but I'll need to see the system map, and I'll need time to learn how your technology moves energy. I don't want to make the wrong guess with something that important. Liren nodded in agreement. You will have the data you need. Until then, rest. The journey to Viora will take 2 cycles. When we arrive, the true work begins. As Tom left the Hall of Memory, Mireia walked beside him. Her steps were light, and her eyes shone with curiosity. You did not fear the cube, she said. I've been fixing machines since I was old enough to hold a wrench, Tom replied. Fear doesn't fix anything. Focus does. Mireia tilted her head thoughtfully. Perhaps that is why the visions led us to you. Back in his cabin, Tom sat on the bed, staring at the glowing wall. He still wasn't sure if he believed in visions or prophecies, but he knew one thing. He was now part of something far bigger than a broken oxygen recycler on a quiet station. And somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark of excitement he hadn't felt in years. The alien ship glided through space, silent and steady, as the stars shifted slowly outside the wide viewing panels. Tom spent much of the journey studying the data Liren had provided. It was a map of the Aegis network, drawn in light and symbols. The lines that represented the energy conduits glowed faintly, and the broken ones flickered as if they were struggling to hold together. Even with the map, Tom knew this was no simple repair. The scale was massive. The towers were scattered across. Oceans, mountains, and deep valleys. Each was connected to the next through crystal channels that carried power like rivers of light. The heart of the system sat deep below Viora's capital city, in a cavern surrounded by unstable energy currents. Every time Tom looked at the diagram, he felt the weight of what they were asking him to do. But instead of fear, he felt a strange pull, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. When he wasn't studying, he walked the ship's long, curved corridors. Sometimes he saw Sael, standing silently near the viewing panels, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness as if expecting trouble. Sometimes Mireia would join him, asking about Earth, about the way humans lived and built their machines. She seemed genuinely curious, and her questions often made Tom smile despite himself. 2 cycles later, Liren called him to the front viewing chamber. We are approaching Viora, she said. Tom stepped inside and stopped. The sight before him made him forget his words. Viora filled the window, a vast world of deep blue oceans and great stretches of green land, dotted with gleaming towers that rose like spears of crystal. Each tower shone faintly, sending thin beams of light toward its neighbors, but several beams were broken, leaving dark gaps in the great circle around the planet. The ship began to descend. As they passed through thin clouds, Tom saw more of the world below. Rivers wound through bright valleys and enormous lakes reflected the sunlight like mirrors. The cities were unlike anything he knew, clusters of tall, slender towers connected by glowing bridges. The capital was the most breathtaking of all. Built along the shore of a vast inland sea, its crystal spires rose high into the sky, catching the light and scattering it in every direction. But at the center stood the tallest tower, and it was dark. That is the heart, Liren said quietly. It has been silent for 33 cycles. Without it, the network cannot see beyond the far sky. As they approached the landing platform, Tom noticed the people gathering below. They wore flowing garments of many colors, their faces bright with curiosity. Some bowed as the ship came down, while others whispered to one another. The ramp lowered, and the warm air of Viora washed over him. It carried the scent of salt from the sea and something faintly sweet, like blooming flowers. Liren led the way down the ramp, her sisters following. Tom walked just behind them, feeling every eye on him. He was aware of how plain he looked compared to the glowing robes and polished crystal surroundings. The crowd parted as they walked toward the base of the central tower. At the entrance stood a group of robed figures, each wearing a band of silver around their foreheads. One of them, an older man with lines of light running down his cheeks, stepped forward and bowed to Liren. "Princess, the council welcomes your return," he said. His eyes flicked to Tom. "And this is the one from the vision?" "Yes," Liren replied. "He has passed the first test." The man studied Tom for a moment, then nodded. "Then we will take him to the heart chamber. Inside, the tower." The walls were clear crystal, but energy pulsed faintly within them like veins of light. They descended in a silent lift that carried them deep underground. The air grew warmer, and the walls began to glow brighter. At last, the lift opened into a huge cavern. In the center stood the heart of the Aegis, a massive crystal structure, shaped like a flower with many petals, each one reaching outward to connect with thick conduits. Several of the petals were cracked, and energy spilled from them in faint, unstable arcs. Tom stepped closer, feeling a hum through the floor. The energy was alive, shifting and restless, as if trying to escape. He could see where the damage had spread from one fracture to another, each break weakening the whole system. "This is far worse than the cube," Tom said quietly. Sael gave a short nod. "And far more dangerous. One wrong move will shatter the heart completely. If that happens, the Aegis will never awaken again." Tom crouched near the base of the heart, examining the nearest conduit. The crystal surface was warm under his hand, and faint vibrations ran through it. He could see the problem. Energy was trying to flow into the damaged petals but couldn't pass cleanly, creating unstable surges. "I'll need to shut down the flow to certain petals while I work," he said. "But if your systems can't handle a partial shutdown, we'll have to build a bypass first." Liren stepped forward. "We can give you control of the conduits. Our engineers will follow your instructions." Tom took a deep breath. The scale of the task was enormous, but the first steps were clear in his mind. "Then we start with a map of every current path still active. I need to know where the surges are strongest before I touch anything." The councilman who had greeted them spoke. "We will bring you what you need. But work quickly. We have seen enemy scouts at the edge of our skies." Tom stood, his eyes fixed on the heart of the Aegis. The damage was bad, but not hopeless. Machines could be brought back if someone understood them well enough, and he intended to understand this one completely. The underground chamber where the heart of the Aegis stood was filled with a quiet tension. The great crystal flower pulsed weakly, its fractured petals glowing faintly as energy struggled to pass through. Tom felt the hum of power vibrating beneath his feet. It was a sound that filled the space, both beautiful and dangerous. Liren and her sisters stood near him, watching silently. The council engineers surrounded the control panels along the walls, ready to follow his orders. Tom felt the weight of every gaze on him, but he focused on the task ahead. He took a slow breath and reached out to the control console. The interface was unlike anything he had used before. Instead of buttons or levers, the controls were thin beams of light that shifted under his touch. The system responded to his movements, glowing brighter as he studied the network map projected into the air. "First," Tom said, "we need to isolate the damaged petals. We cannot let unstable energy flow through them while I work." One of the council engineers nodded and began adjusting the conduits under Tom's direction. Slowly, beams of light dimmed and then went out, cutting power to the broken petals. The crystal flower pulsed more steadily, but the heart was still weak. Tom knelt near the largest fracture, studying the jagged edges. The energy that leaked there was wild and unpredictable. If he touched it without care, it could shatter the whole heart. He pulled out a small device from his kit, a scanner he had built to detect faults in electrical circuits. Holding it close to the crystal, he watched as the readings appeared on his portable screen. The fractures were deep, and the energy flows tangled in strange patterns. "This isn't just a broken circuit," Tom said quietly. "There are feedback loops causing surges. I'll have to reroute power to calm the flow before I repair the cracks." Sael stepped forward, her voice steady. "We have reserves of energy stored nearby. If you need to redirect power, they are at your disposal." Tom nodded, thinking quickly. "Good. I'll need those to balance the load. I don't want the whole system to collapse under sudden strain." He began mapping out the flow of energy through the conduits, drawing a plan in the air with his hands. The glowing lines shifted and twisted as he moved them, showing new paths for the power to follow. Maria watched him closely. "You move with confidence," she said softly. Tom smiled faintly. "I have to. If I hesitate, the whole thing might fall apart." Hours passed as Tom and the engineers worked together. He directed the rerouting of energy, carefully balancing each conduit. Sometimes the system shuddered with sudden bursts of power, but Tom was ready. He shut down pathways that threatened to overload and opened new ones to carry the flow safely. At one point, a surge sparked from a nearby fracture. Tom reacted quickly, using a tool to ground the energy and stop the spread. The chamber flashed with bright light, but the heart held firm. "Careful," Sael warned. "The fractures grow more unstable." Tom wiped sweat from his brow. No! This is like holding back a storm." After the energy was more stable, Tom turned to the physical repairs. He pulled out fine strands of conductive crystal and began weaving them into the broken petals. It was delicate work. Each strand had to fit perfectly or the whole repair would fail. Liran came closer. "Your hands are steady." Tom looked up. "It has to be. One wrong move, and this whole system could collapse." Slowly, the cracks began to heal. The petals glowed brighter, and the energy flow smoothed. Tom could feel the heart growing stronger beneath his fingers. But the challenge was far from over. The fractures were deep, and some parts were damaged beyond simple repair. "We will need to build new conduits to replace the worst sections," Tom said. "Do you have materials that match this crystal?" Liran nodded. "Yes. Our miners. Bring new crystal from deep caverns. It is pure and strong." "Good," Tom replied. "I'll need some to shape new conduits and connect them carefully to the old ones." The engineers brought crates of glowing crystal. Tom worked with them, shaping and fitting the new pieces into place. It was slow and difficult work, but step by step the heart began to pulse more steadily. As night fell over Viora, the chamber glowed softly with renewed energy. Tom stood back, exhausted but hopeful. Liran smiled. "You have done well today." Tom nodded, feeling a deep tiredness, but also pride. There is still much to do. The heart is not whole yet. Maria stepped forward. "We believe in you." Tom looked at her and smiled. "Then I won't let you down." Outside the chamber, the sky above Viora shimmered faintly with protective light. The Aegis was beginning to wake. The days passed quickly inside the heart chamber. Tom worked from dawn to dusk, his hands moving steadily over the glowing crystal petals. Each repair made the Aegis pulse stronger and brighter, but the deeper fractures were still dangerous. The system was fragile and could fail at any moment. The princesses stayed close. Liran often stood silently nearby, watching Tom with calm eyes. Sael guarded the entrances, alert to any threat. Mireia, with her quiet curiosity, asked many questions about Earth and human machines. Tom appreciated her company even though he barely had time to answer. One morning, the chamber trembled slightly. A soft warning light flashed on the control panel. Sael frowned and moved to check the sensors. Enemy ships have been detected, near the outer borders, she said in a low voice. They are moving closer. Tom's heart beat faster. He understood the danger. Without the Aegis fully working, Viora was vulnerable to attack. The enemy could strike at any moment. Liran's voice was calm but firm. We must finish the repair quickly. The network's shield must be restored. Tom nodded and turned back, to the heart. He focused on the largest crack yet to be fixed. It was deep and jagged, with energy leaking in wild arcs. If he tried to fix it too soon, it might cause a cascade failure. He needed a plan. After studying the control maps again, Tom decided to create a temporary bypass. He would redirect the energy flow around the broken section, giving him time to carefully rebuild it. He asked the engineers for more of the special crystal. They worked quickly, shaping thin conduits and connectors under his direction. The new parts glowed faintly as they prepared them. Tom connected the bypass carefully, guiding the energy away from the dangerous crack. Slowly, the wild surges calmed, and the heart's pulse steadied. Now came the hardest part. He reached into the fracture with a fine tool, carefully weaving new crystal filaments into place. The energy around him hummed softly, sometimes sparking, unpredictably. Suddenly, a surge exploded from the heart, throwing Tom backward. He hit the floor but quickly sat up, wiping sweat from his brow. That was close, he said quietly. The princesses rushed to his side. Liran's calm voice reminded him, "The heart is alive, but it tests us." Tom nodded, steadying his hands. "I'm ready." He continued his work with renewed focus. Each repair was more delicate than the last, but slowly the fractures closed. The energy flowed smoother, and the heart's glow spread evenly across all petals. After long hours, Tom finally tightened the last connection. The heart pulsed with full strength. The crystal flower shone brightly, sending beams of light through the conduits and out into the planet's sky. The chamber filled with a soft hum of power, a sound that seemed to vibrate in Tom's bones. Outside, the people of Viora looked up. The dark sky lit with shimmering shields and glowing colors. The Aegis had awakened. Liran smiled for the first time in many cycles. "You have saved us." Tom felt tired but proud. "I only did what I know." Maria stepped forward, her eyes shining. "You are more than that. You are a bridge between worlds." Sael nodded. "We owe you our future." Tom looked at the glowing heart. He thought of his quiet station at the edge of space and how far he had come. The princesses gathered around him, their faces full of gratitude and hope. For the first time, Tom felt he belonged, not just as a visitor, but as someone who had made a difference. The glow from the repaired Aegis heart bathed the great chamber in soft light. Tom stood near the crystal flower, still feeling the hum of power beneath his feet. The work was done, and the system was alive again. Yet the feeling inside him was more than relief. It was the start of something new. Outside the heart chamber, the city of Viora was alive with celebration. Word of the Aegis restoration had spread quickly. Streets filled with people wearing bright robes and smiles. They danced and sang songs of hope and new beginnings. Liran and her sisters led a procession through the streets, with Tom walking beside them. The people cheered, bowing respectfully as the human who had saved their world passed by. Tom felt their eyes on him, filled with gratitude and wonder. Despite the warmth of their welcome, Tom felt a quiet surprise. He was a simple engineer from a small space station. He had never imagined being called a hero by an alien people. He thought about his old life, the quiet days of fixing broken machines, and how much had changed. That evening, a great hall was opened for a special gathering. The Council of Viora sat at the front, with the princesses beside them. Tom was invited to speak. He stood before the crowd, nervous but steady. "I did not come here as a hero," he said simply. I am just someone who listened to what a machine needed and tried to help. But what I have learned is that trust and hope can build bridges between worlds." The crowd listened, their faces bright with respect. Liran nodded in approval, and Mireia smiled warmly. After the speech, the princesses took Tom to a quiet garden filled with glowing flowers. The air was warm, and the soft hum of the aegis was a gentle presence nearby. Mireia spoke first. "You changed our world, Tom. But more than that, you showed us how different life can come together and make something stronger." Tom looked at her and smiled. "I never thought I would leave my station and end up here, but I am glad I did." Liran joined them. "Viora will always welcome you. You are part of our story now." Tom felt a deep sense of belonging. For the first time, he realized he was more than just a visitor. He was a bridge between two worlds, a symbol of hope and unity. Days passed, and Tom learned more about Viora's people and their ways. He helped share his knowledge of human technology while they taught him about their ancient wisdom and crystal science. Together they built plans to explore other parts of the galaxy, not as strangers or enemies, but as friends. Tom's journey had started with a simple repair. Now it had become a new beginning, one where humans and aliens stood together to face the future. As the stars shone brightly over Viora, Tom looked up and felt ready for whatever came next.